Welcome back to the Final Mile. It's our episode, or our segment here where we answer all of your listener questions. We've got 3 good ones today, but make sure to check out all of our other content at freight360.net, including our Freight Broker Basics course for a educational option for yourself or your team as you're growing. Check out the sponsors down in the description and leave us a review, share, comment, like, all that good stuff. Our first question. This came, I believe, from a YouTube comment. Said, are dispatchers, especially foreign dispatchers, damaging the industry, and what could be the possible reasons behind it? I'm asking this because a while ago, some of my posts didn't get a good response. Also, I'd really appreciate it if you could share some suggestions on how I can improve myself to be a better dispatcher and play a positive role in the industry. All right, so this one was our Facebook group. This guy he's a foreign dispatcher, and he just wants to do good in the industry. And I think a lot of people are kind of jumping on him because they just assume that he's, because there's a reputation around him. So what would you say? Because you personally have used a lot more independent dispatchers than me and have had a lot of success with it. So what would you say, whether someone's foreign or in the U.S., how can they differentiate themselves and be a true value add as a dispatcher?
Well, I use them in very specific scenarios. So, like, the first thing I would say is, like, I don't necessarily or have ever had a preference to where a person's located. My preference is to the value they provide to the business, right? Like, I don't care where a human being is that I'm working with if they're adding value and they're helpful, right? So, probably it's just a lot of fraud and things tend to originate overseas. So there's probably just a lot of frustration, I think, that is getting pointed at folks that probably don't deserve it. I mean, we talked about this in fraud. We've talked about this in the CDL issues. And, like, to be honest, like, in a lot of these circumstances, like, they're also the victims, right? So I don't think there's much you can do about where you're located. I think you focus on what value you add to the industry is the important part, because one, you can't do anything about it anyway. But I
Yeah.
think the other important aspect of this, right, is where and how do they provide value? So how they're providing value that I've worked with is, like, they're able to source a lot of capacity through one point of contact that is really helpful, right? Now, they changed the guidance on how dispatchers do this, though. So to be honest, like, how I got value out of working with them isn't in along with the guidance anymore. Like,
Yeah.
they did things that they're not supposed to be doing currently. And, like, that's where, like, this I feel like kind of gets at a hard question, because, like, for me, for example, like, I use dispatchers related to drayage. And where it was really helpful is, like, the person who I worked with, she had a lot of family that all owned, like, one truck or two trucking companies. So instead of me having to contact literally 12 different trucking companies or 25 drivers, right? She just kind of knew where all of her cousins and friends' trucks were every day. So I would book loads under different MCs through her, but I only had one point of contact, and she knew where all her drivers were. She did all their paperwork, organized everything. So everything was run very, very well from my point of view. And it was super helpful because, again, I'm talking to one person who was always available, who would text me back immediately, communicated fantastically. I would say that's probably the one thing that every dispatcher could do to add value is, like, really effective and accurate communication. Being available, knowing where your drivers are, and being honest and open about what is actually happening. Because the biggest frustration with any dispatcher, right, whether it's independent or not, is, like, not knowing what is actually happening. And the dispatcher saying, like, oh, the guy's delivered there a bunch. He'll be empty in a half an hour. And then you call the driver, and the driver's like, dude, this is my first time delivering here. There's 9 trucks ahead of me. I'm not going to be out of here till the end of the day, right? Like,
Yeah.
that is the thing that I think is the most frustrating dealing with any dispatchers.
So I'll add in guidance or no guidance on dispatchers. In practice, they're still operating in a similar way that they used to, because the law hasn't really changed, or it just hasn't changed, and that's one of the things that we had lobbied for was inclusion of the language on dispatching services. But to the question here, echo everything that you say on adding value and understanding what the need is. The other thing is, and I'll address the foreign part, and you could just switch to any other industry and any other country and answer the question this way: is if let's say I live in Germany, and in Germany we have plenty of auto parts manufacturers, right? And some foreign person from China wants to come and do a job for me in Germany. And there's people in Germany that can do that job for me. There may be a stigma that why would I work with this foreign person when I'd rather just do it in my own country? Well, the reason I would work with someone from China is that if the person from China can put themselves in my shoes and understand what it's like to operate in Germany, and if they can do that job for me successfully, just as good or better than someone that's in my area, that's why I would work with them. So if you relate it to brokerage and dispatching, let's say this guy's we'll just say he's in Europe. I don't know where he was. And he wants to be a dispatcher for the U.S. trucking industry. He needs to understand what it's like to be in our shoes. So if I'm a motor carrier or a freight broker in the United States with my company, what are the issues that they're running into the United States, right? Where can a dispatcher add value, right? That's really addresses the country you're living in. Part of it is just, it doesn't matter what country you're in, as long as you can understand the landscape of where the country in which you're trying to add value, right? And not to mention, there's a ton of brokers and motor carriers that you're going to talk to on the phone that also they're not American, right? Or maybe they became U.S. citizens, but a lot of them, you might have trucking companies that they have offices over in Europe, or brokerages that are over in Europe, or wherever in the world. Not everybody in our industry in the United States is all the same American people. We are a melting pot of all kinds of what's the word I'm looking for? Heritages or backgrounds and nationalities and all that stuff. So, but yeah, understand the market you're trying to add value in and be able to add that value with expertise. You can't just if you're brand new and have no knowledge of the industry, you're not going to succeed, right? You have to learn it, and that probably means working for somebody first with their dispatching company. So anyway, good discussion. Next question. This was a YouTube comment. This was after, I think it was one of our recent fraud discussion episodes. Somebody said, I had this thought listening to the Q&A. Could a brokerage limit the carriers they're willing to give loads to only carriers that will ensure GPS tracking by cell phone, is carried by the driver, and will do a small video from their phone to send to the broker when they arrive at the pickup and the side of their truck to see what it looks like? And then in addition to a do not load unless direction you gave your shipper, is it possible for them to not load unless they get the go-ahead from the broker? Could it be a text, just a go, no-go to that truck that pulled in, a preemptive no-go if a carrier was not meeting requirements? There's more scrutiny walking out of a Best Buy than with a truck picking up $100,000 loads. I also made a suggestion about FMCSA verification. I keep thinking of ways to prevent fraud that's workable. Really good points here, and I thought it was funny. He's not wrong. You walk out of Best Buy, and their loss prevention team is looking at you like you stole something, but yeah, dude, someone just rolls up, gets loaded with $100,000 of cargo, and rolls down the road. So to these suggestions here, not bad suggestions. I don't personally think that's enough. Depending on the relationship, but some of the things that we do at Pierce, we used to do it this way. GPS tracking and pictures at the pickup. And that was yeah, that's good. And then you realize that people are spoofing pictures. People are spoofing GPS tracking. So now we'll do, QuickScope's a great one. Partner of ours too. Good friends with the guys that created it. That's load level fraud prevention. So
yes.
Driver gets to the pickup, you send a text from QuickScope. Driver opens it's not even an app they have to download. It just opens up their camera on their phone. They take a picture of the side of their truck, right? QuickScope literally geotags it, so they can't spoof it with a fake picture that they uploaded from, 2 weeks ago. It has to be taken right then and right there. So we know where the picture was taken. It reads the side of the truck. It reads the MC number and all that good stuff. And as long as everything matches up to what you told QuickScope it had to be, so here's the MC number and Here's where they need to be to verify. If it passes, they get released the pickup number or whatever identifier that customer requires to get loaded. Another option, ELD tracking, right? You can do it through highway, through trucker tools. I don't know about macro point, maybe. But the ability to take pictures and stuff that way as well. Regardless of what you do, you need to be able to make sure that without a shadow of a doubt, the truck that's getting loaded is the right truck in the right place at the right time, right? Those are the things, and how you do that is up to you. And your level of trust and comfort with one carrier might make you check those boxes easier than with someone that you've never worked with before, right? Someone that you have worked with for years that has their own, fleet tracking link that they want to send you. If you're comfortable with that, cool. If it's John Doe's trucking that you just met, maybe you want to get verification at pickup of the right truck that's on the insurance certificate at the MC number is clean. Maybe you run through gen logs, make sure they're not running under like 4 different MCs. Like there are so many tools out there, but creating a process yourself and understanding what that process is doing for you and how it could be harming you if it's too much of a process. That's what I think is important. Anything to add there? Because I think everyone's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, I think using vetting software like Genlogs and verifying who you're working with, I think is something you need to be doing ahead of time for sure. I think there are more things that you mentioned you should be doing. And like the thing I would point out is like to implement, which I think is well thought out, you really need a shipper that's willing to work with you, which is sometimes you can get that and sometimes you can't, right? And at the end of the day, if the customer is just going to load anybody that shows up that asks for a load heading to wherever, all the safety precautions and things you do in the beginning or preventative kind of go out the window.
Yep.
Like you said, because it's like, where does Best Buy do that? At the point of sale, where the person picks it up and walks out of the building. Where does that happen in our industry? When the truck is loaded as he's going to be literally leave the shipper. So you need somebody that's physically doing that to work with the broker to make sure that these things are true.
Yeah, and having a good, like, I know we've said this before, but having a good process with your shippers on, hey, like if they don't know what you're doing to vet carriers, it doesn't do them any good,
Correct.
That's cool, but they have no idea what you're doing. But if you're like, hey, here's everything I'm doing, this is how serious of a problem it is. When I send you somebody, I have high confidence that it's the right person, but can I just ask that you double check that the information I send to you is accurate of who you're loading before it gets loaded?
Correct.
That's that simple.
I'm going to let you answer the last one. I got to jump into a customer call actually with something that just came up. So if you just want to wrap and do the last one.
Alrighty. All right. Our last question here, Ben, give us your sign off first.
Whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.
All right. So going solo here for the last one. Can you explain the difference of a TWIC card, TSA certification, and TSA Indirect Air Carrier? So I think this question has something to do with our talk about the suggestion of having a TWIC card for motor carrier owners to check for background and all that stuff. So the TWIC card, that's the Transportation Workers Identification Credential. If you've ever, flown in an airport and you see TSA with the little ID card with the chip in it, or if you've ever seen a military ID card, they look similar. TWIC card it looks the size of like a debit or credit card, and it's got a little chip in there with a picture and everything. These are issued to individuals. So think drivers that are going to be going into a secured port facility to pick up or deliver a load. All right. They go through TSA, which, Coast Guard and TSA background checks, fingerprinting, all of that. That's the TWIC card. TSA certification, sometimes it also goes by the known shipper. So the same way there's like TSA PreCheck as a known traveler, TSA certification for shippers is the known shipper. So the shipper would go through a vetting process themselves, and that would allow them and their screening process to be easier or expedited when it comes to shipping. So lastly, the TSA Indirect Air Carrier. This is one that's issued not to a shipper or to an individual, but this is a company, like a freight forwarder. And this is going to be a similar thing if they're doing any kind of air-related cargo with the airlines. So think about if they're putting cargo onto a commercial or passenger plane in the belly, things like that. And they have to go through, or they've got to follow TSA protocol and standards to stay compliant with that. So again, TWIC card, think about driver. TSA certification, shipper. TSA Indirect Air Carrier is going to be a company, a logistics company, like a freight forwarder that's going to be issued that. So great questions. Keep sending them our way. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next Freight 360 podcast and Final Mile. Ben's already off here, but until next time, go Bills.